Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Binge Chickens, reviewing Series 5 of Doctor Who. Back for another episode with Lo. How are you, Lo?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a little while since our last episode, and it's exciting to get into the first series from Matt Smith. So I guess
Yes.
as we tend to do, I guess I'll start with your overall thoughts of this season or series.
Look, I will be completely honest. Just like when Moffat took over as showrunner, this is where like my regular viewing of Doctor Who stopped. So there are quite a few episodes this season, or a few episodes here and there that I hadn't actually seen before. So it was actually cool to watch new episodes of New Who. But overall, like I think it was a good season, like every other season. Yes, there are some good episodes, there are some bad episodes, but overall, pretty good. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I mean, from memory, I watched this season while I was over in the UK, so it was actually really kind of novel to me to actually be watching it in England. So, sitting down Saturday 5 or 7 p.m. or whatever time it was on air, being like, this is, as it goes to air sort of thing. So it was kind of cool in that sense. I mean, Matt Smith was a bit of a took a while to get used to after David Tennant. I found some of the episodes, his performance wasn't as amazing as it could have been, which is kind of weird to think about because I think in later seasons he definitely does start to nail it quite well. But yeah, he took a bit to get used to, especially because he was quite young.
Yeah, I think when like it originally aired, like I was a die-hard Tennant fan, and so I was just very hesitant to have a new Doctor. That being said, though, on rewatch, I actually don't mind. Like I've always liked Matt Smith as Doctor, but I had my hesitations. When it initially came out, I was being stupid. So it
Well,
was actually a pretty good series.
Yeah, so maybe before we get into our favorite and least favorite episodes, we'll take a look. Normally, we'd look at the Christmas special, but there wasn't a Christmas special to start this season off. Instead, we started off with the 11th hour, which was the regeneration story, essentially. What were your thoughts of this one? I mean, we've got him kind of coming to grips with his regeneration. Got the infamous sort of fish fingers and custard. And then we get a bit of a full-blown story with Olivia Colman and a few others as well. So a pretty interesting story.
Karen Gillan?
No, Olivia Colman's in it.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Prisoner Zero.
Episode. She's in it, but she's hardly in that episode.
Oh, well, yes, but she's like a famous cameo.
Yes, she is. I feel like they could have used her in a very more prominent role. I guess maybe that point.
I wonder how.
In 2010, I don't think she was as big as she is now.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I wonder if she was very big. I mean, presumably she was on Peep's show at the time. I guess.
Yes.
I don't know.
When did Broadchurch come out? Because I think that's when she really.
Oh, that was later. Yeah, that was later.
Like, hit it big time. I mean, I already knew she was, and now she's playing the Queen in The Crown. So, but yes, 11th hour. It's a cute episode. We do get baby Amy, or baby Amelia, and then there's a lot of focusing on waiting in this season. With her having to wait for the Doctor. I had never seen this episode before, so it was totally fresh. Interesting. It was interesting. I think it very much had the tone of new, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I actually forgot that the end of the episode is 2 years later. So when he picks her up to go adventuring and it's the night before her wedding, I'd actually forgotten that was another 2 years later because obviously we get introduced to her, Rory, and I can't remember the name of the other guy. That is it, Keith or something like that? I can't remember.
The hot one.
the hot one, as the Doctor sort of refers to him, or the good-looking one.
Yeah.
Who was sort of like, it was actually a really good sort of twist, I thought, with him, because he was almost being set up as the new Mickey, where he was chatting to the tech heads and that sort of stuff on his computer. So it was a bit of a swerve for the audience as well. I thought that watching that episode fresh for the first time, you would have thought, oh well, he's going to be the love interest, or he's going to be the other companion, and then it's a bit of a curveball with it being Rory instead.
Well, I knew it was Rory because I have seen later episodes
Obviously, yes.
previously. But yeah, I mean, it did still feel like they were setting him up for a larger role. But yeah, I'm just trying to remember what happened in that episode.
Well, we get our first glimpse at the cracks in time, which I mean, I figure we'll go favorite and least favorite episodes, and then we can talk about the season arc. But yes, that does get introduced in this.
But we get that introduced to the crack in the wall, or crack in time, crack in the wall, which is the motif for the season, or the story arc, and then the shapeshifter. Look, it was a good Doctor Who episode. I do think there were elements where maybe got a bit silly, but I like the idea of the shape-shifting alien. I feel like that was very classic Who, and it was a nice intro to both Amy, our kissogram, and the Doctor.
Yeah, actually, on that topic, I mean, this episode did feel more adult. I mean, yes, I think the food scenes with young Amelia sort of dragged a little bit, so they felt a bit silly. But it did feel a lot more adult as well, with her being a kissogram, which was essentially like a call girl or something. And then
no, not quite a kissogram to a call girl.
Well, it's paying someone money. Well, okay, it's as close to it as you're going to get in a family-friendly show, but there's certainly more adult elements in this episode, or allusions to more adult concepts, than in previous seasons.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't end with was that later on where Amy tries to kiss the Doctor?
And do more than that, but yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, well, how about we'll move on then, and we will get from you first, Lo, your least favorite episode of the season.
Okay, I'm trying to work that out. I didn't really like the victory of the Daleks.
I know what your least favorite episode.
I don't know. There's a lot that I was just like, you know what? My issue was the 2 finale episodes. I think I said this to you at the time. It was a good season that I enjoyed. I didn't necessarily love every episode, but they were enjoyable episodes until it got to the end, when it all just there's too much happening. There's stories. I said this to you when we watched it. I was like, it's gone from being Doctor Who regular season to Moffat on steroids in that final 2-parter, where literally everything that could happen was happening. We have Daleks, Cybermen. We've got the all the spaceships in the sky. We've got the Doctor then trying to the Pandorica, and one of them's in the Pandorica, and it brings the other one back, and then the Doctor has to sacrifice the other. It's just there was too much.
Yeah, but I mean, in fairness,
the Doctor's getting killed by a TARDIS, by a Dalek, but then he comes back, and they've got baby Amelia, and it's baby Amelia who meets a Doctor, and I'm like, what?
But in fairness, the Russell T Davies seasons were much more over the top in terms of end of time, end of reality, sort of, think about the David Tennant season with Davros. That's the reality bomb. It's, moving planets in the skies, and you get all the companions coming back. That's just as extravagant. And in fairness,
I expect that from Russell T Davies for his last. That was his last finale.
Oh, but the others weren't that much better. Doomsday with the Cybermen and Daleks fighting.
And then Amy bringing the Doctor back with her memories. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think at the time watching it, I was sort of thinking the same thing, of kind of rolling my eyes at Moffat, but watching it back I think it makes a lot more sense, and it's at least not as over the top as some of the Russell T Davies ones where the resolution was much cheaper.
Yeah. Well, it's a sci-fi show, and I want some science fiction, not some, oh, I had some good memories and I made the person come back. And that's something that I know, like, we're now going on to the next series after this, and currently watching that kind of happens in a few episodes, and it just, science fiction, mate. Give me technology, give me like logical reasoning. Don't give
The
me
Matt Smith
happy.
seasons definitely do feel much more like they embrace a fantasy element. I do agree.
Yeah. Like, obviously there's going to be an elephant. Elephant? It's going to be an elephant. There's going to be an element of fantasy, because it is a that show, like that type of show. I mean, even with Old Who, there is those fantastical elements, but like, as I said, like, literally it says here in the episode synopsis, Amy brings the Doctor back to her wedding to Rory with her memories. Just, no.
But remember that wasn't the whole thing that she was trapped in the Pandorica, so all of her experiences were able to be resurrected? I thought that was the whole...
we shouldn't have to try and work it out. We should know. I don't watch this show to put the puzzle pieces together. And this is always my issue with Moffat. It's all too much of a, you have to watch every episode and take note of all the tiny little things and then bring it all back together at the end.
I don't know. I think he does a pretty good job of spelling things out in the last episodes. Like, I think the following season's even more spelled out with things, but we'll get to that review when it comes. Yes. My least favorite episode of the season was Victory of the Daleks. I think, as far as Dalek episodes go, Daleks Take Manhattan wasn't fantastic, and this one was pretty average as well. Especially when you get to having airplanes flying around in space trying to attack the Dalek spaceship. Wasn't great.
Oh my God, and the weird-looking Daleks.
Yeah, exactly. The weird-colored Daleks. Yeah, and you want to talk about emotions and love saving the day or whatever. You've got the person that they build as a bomb who, just by thinking that he's human, the bomb doesn't go off.
Oh my God. I've blocked this out. Actually, I take it back. This is the worst episode. The finale comes second.
So yeah, look, I think that the initial concept setup isn't too bad in terms of the Dalek serving the humans, and then the Doctor trying to have to figure out what they're up to. But yeah, it felt a bit flat to me, especially so early in the season. I thought, it was going quite well we'd had The Beast Below, which was, I think, a great first space episode for Amy and the Doctor, with a pretty compelling episode. Mystery. So yeah, this one felt quite flat to me.
Yeah, I really loved The Beast Below. I hadn't watched that episode before, but I just thought that was a really beautiful episode, and it was a good balance of emotion and sci-fi, like with the whale saving the children and blah blah blah. Like, I thought that was a good element. But yeah, the next one with the Victory of the Daleks with what is it, Bracewell, who they use memories he doesn't even actually have, and feelings that have been like programmed because he's been created to make him into a human. Oh my God. The more we talk about this,
so what was your favorite episode of the season?
The more I'm remembering how much I did not enjoy. Yep. I liked Vampires of Venice.
Yeah, I thought you might say that one. That was quite a nice setting
in an episode.
I thought that was pretty. It was a pretty well written episode with good good dialogue, and it was a tight plot. I think, as you're sort of talking about, having these episodes that are much more it's a simple concept. That doesn't get too out of hand and doesn't get too far away from them, because I think Doctor Who's at its best with those sorts of simple concepts, and it's not something that then you get like a 5-minute rushed resolution at the end of the episode.
Yes. Now, I think I was getting a bit confused at the beginning. I realized when I was thinking of plot line, I thought came from 11th Hour, actually came from Amy's Choice, which was the old people. Now, I know you really like Amy's Choice as an episode. When I think I initially watched it, hated it. But on rewatch, I actually didn't mind it.
I think it's got a good mystery to it. I think the fact that the whole hook for that episode is which is the reality, which is the dream, and they have to sort of figure it out, and they can't they wake up from one and fall asleep in the other. I thought was quite a good grab because you talk about wanting sci-fi. That's such a fundamental sci-fi sort of concept of like what's the reality? Are they in a simulation or that sort of thing? So yeah, no, I thought it had a good twist ending.
Yes. What do you mean the twist ending in terms of the Dream Lord?
That they're both dreams.
Yes. I enjoyed that. I think that was a great ending. I think what really ruined it for me was the idea that the Dream Lord is the manifestation of the Doctor.
Yeah, I think it would have potentially worked better if he was the Master, but I think that was almost part of the twist of everyone just being like, oh yeah, he's the Master, and then him not being the Master was sort of a twist in itself.
I think it would have just been better. It was just some evil entity deciding to have some fun with them.
Yeah.
And not everything has to always be linked and related.
Yeah. And Toby Jones is great. I really enjoy him as an actor.
Yes, he was great as the Dream Lord.
Bounced off Matt Smith very well.
Yes.
Probably one of the most well liked or popular episodes from the season's probably Vincent and the Doctor, especially for that scene at the end of the episode. And I can't remember if I've said before in episodes of our reviews that one of my big frustrations at times with Doctor Who is that they have such poignant and great episodes that are sometimes let down by the special effects. And I thought for large parts of this episode, it actually was quite effective by not showing the monster. And we said with Midnight and other episodes, actually not seeing the monster can be more terrifying or more interesting.
Yes.
But unfortunately, when we did see the monster, I did think that the CGI let it down a bit when you've got this great character episode about Vincent van Gogh, and then you've got this sort of weird CGI monster. I'm like, the episode was at its strongest without the monster, really, where the monster was his depression and him fighting his depression and him wanting to have that self-belief. And that was sort of the heart of the episode. And I just felt like the monster just was a distraction.
Yeah. I know, I agree. The CGI wasn't great, but it was great having an invisible monster to begin with. But also it's such a funky looking monster. I really appreciate it.
It's like a rooster mixed with like a rhino.
It's like a cockatoo parrot meets it's unique. But yeah, that's a really beautiful episode, Vincent and the Doctor. Very much feels like a Richard Curtis episode, particularly with Bill Nye in it. You get all the Love Actually vibes, even in the way it's filmed when they go to the gallery with Vincent and show him, and that panning shot as they spin around and see his reaction is beautiful. It's just a beautifully shot. All the sunflowers. I love Van Gogh as a painter. So it's nice to have an episode that kind of looks at history a little bit, like a prominent figure, and someone who does have such beautiful works, but also it deals quite well with this idea of mental illness. That's a beautiful episode. I'm surprised you brought that up because I figured that would be your favorite.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I was bringing it up.
Okay, you didn't mention that. You just were like, Vincent the Doctor. I was like, oh, is this not his favorite episode?
And then I guess the other episodes we haven't really touched on are we've got the two-parters in this, which we have the Weeping Angels making a return with River Song, as well as the Silurians making a return. in a two-parter set in 2020, which feels very weird to watch these days, having
Yes.
lived through 2020 in a very different reality. But I guess of the two, perhaps the Weeping Angels two-parter is the more intriguing, where we first really get River Song fleshed out beyond her appearance in Silence in the Library and what's the other part called? I've forgotten now. I can't remember. But the two-parter with David Tennant.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you think of her reappearance in this? And I guess the Weeping Angels being used in a pretty different way from Blink.
Yes. I get them wanting to bring the angels back because they were so popular in the Blink episode. I don't know if this was the right way to do it.
It did feel like they sort of, I guess the word I'd use is
forced.
like nerfed. You know, like they've nerfed the angels in the sense that the whole concept of, you know, whatever takes the image of an angel is itself an angel, which was, I kind of get where they were going with that, because then it made the whole thing about Amy couldn't open her eyes and it was quite terrifying for her. But then I'm like, the more you think about that as a concept, the more silly it becomes and the more like ridiculously overpowered the angels would be, that anything that contains the angel is itself an angel.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I think it was effective having Amy not being able to open her eyes, because like all the, you know, the scene where she's having to walk through the forest with her eyes shut and no help, like that's quite a dramatic scene. But it just seemed like a lot. It seemed very forced. I loved having Ian Glenn in it. He's my favorite Jorah the Explorer. Love him. Lots of guest stars this season.
You can tell the budget really increased this season.
I do like having River back. It's kind of sucky though, like watching these episodes, because I must have watched some of these episodes late, or not all of them, but like I knew that River was his wife, so it was just like, when will the Doctor realize it? I think my biggest issue with this is that like it seemed very early in the season for them to be having such a run-in with the crack.
It did feel like a very like late season, you know, everything's escalating.
Yeah, like I felt like everything escalated very quickly in that episode. And I was like running up to like episode 4 and there's this huge crack. I thought this was going to be the season arc. But they seem to be solving it now. Like the Doctor had no idea of what it was. Like it just didn't become that mystery anymore.
Yeah, it'd be like if in like the 4th episode of series 1, Christopher Eccleston was like, "Oh, the words bad wolf are following us around."
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Again, I like the Weeping Angel is a great villain to bring back. I don't know if it was the right way to do it. It just seemed a bit forced and a bit too much. But it did work in terms of keeping Amy's eye shut, and you had that great scene where the Doctor comes back and talks to her. Like when he comes from her future to talk to her.
Yeah, from like the finale. Yeah.
From the finale. I don't know. I feel like as we're going through all these episodes, I'm like, it was a good season, but I wasn't like, oh my God. Like, I think I preferred Martha's season. Which I know you didn't, so.
And then, I mean, I guess speaking of the cracks, the other big sort of tie-in with the other two-parter being the Silurians two-parter was, of course, Rory's death in the crack.
Yes.
Bringing the Silurians back from, I think their last appearance had been with the Third Doctor, where I guess they had quite a different sort of design. They were very much that stereotypical rubber alien monster. So this was like a pretty significant redesign to sort of bring them into the 21st century, so to speak.
Yes.
I thought it was a good two-parter, and in a way, and I can tell it's probably not the sort of episode you like, because I know you don't like episodes where you get really frustrated, but it did feel very tense in the sense that, you know, if everyone just behaved rationally, there was no conflict in this episode, and the
See,
whole point is that people are irrational and don't act in the most logical way.
I find that so funny that you're like, you probably did enjoy this. This was probably like out of I don't know what my favorite episode would be. Probably The Beast Below. But like, or Vampires of Venice. I mean, Venice is a bit silly, and I love that because it did have that Doctor Who vibe. But like, if I had to pick another one, it would be the this two-parter.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I loved the like exploration of the human psyche, and the Silurian being like, one of you is going to kill me, and I know who it is, and that all gets intense. Like, it was so good that using human psychology to build that tension. So good.
And of course, we know who wrote these
I enjoyed
episodes,
that. And then
right?
I like the Silurian as well. Third Doctor, like, callback. I love the Third Doctor.
And of course, we're referring to Chris Chibnall having written these episodes. Considering his controversial place in Doctor Who now, it's quite funny.
Yes. Yeah. I really enjoyed it, and I liked that. We had something to barter with, and that got taken away, and that meant that great episode. I think it was a really good two-parter.
And then I guess the only other episode we haven't touched on, which I'm actually surprised I thought you might have brought up in your least favorite episodes, was The Lodger, because you're not a huge fan of James Corden.
I just like James Corden. Like, that's what they came down to.
I thought it was a reasonable episode, though. I think the most interesting thing about this episode, which has not really been touched on more broadly in Doctor Who, is its links into the following season, where there's essentially a member of the Silence dead in one of the corners of the room when they get into the attic, and it's basically been trying to build an equivalent TARDIS, which is such like a fundamental part of the lore, but it was just like, oh, this is just a fun side episode, which was inconsequential. And it sort of gets vaguely referenced the following season as well, which I found really crazy, because it was actually like they went, yeah, this is tied in, but it was just done in such like a casual way. I've just found it really weird. Like, weird in a good way, I guess, but yeah, weird.
Yes. It's I liked the concept of the episode. I love that the second story didn't actually exist, and that it was a perception filter. I agree with you that the ship and the silence, like, that is something that you have to look up. Because it isn't actually referenced in the show. I don't know. Well, I think it was like, no offense to you, I think it was me who pointed it out to you and saying, isn't it the same ship as?
When we were watching the Silence, opening 2 episodes of the following season. Yeah.
I did like the relationship between James Corden and Sophie, or Craig and Sophie, and like that. Oh, we're friends and we both like each other, but neither of us are going to make that first move. And but then this was another episode where what saves the day? Feelings. So
I guess you can't be too unhappy with the finale, having it's built up through the season.
I think I remember when we watched the finale. I think we just watched we obviously watched them back to back. Like, we binged this. We are the binge chickens. But I just got cranky every episode. I just got crankier and crankier. I was just like, no. I'm over this. I'm over the too much. Like, there was so much happening in the Pandorica episode. Like, Rory's an Auton. He waits for 2000. Like, it's just feelings.
Yeah, well, then let's bring it all together then with that finale. We sort of already have talked about the finale, but in terms of the season arc, we've touched on it a bit through the episodes with the crack in time. I guess you look back at, we've had Bad Wolf, we've had Saxon, we've had Torchwood as sort of peripheral like words or themes, whereas this was the first season, I think, where the season arc felt very consequential, because we had Rory disappear into the crack in time and vanish from Amy's memory. We had the cracks quite Torchwood and Bad Wolf and stuff was very much like, oh, if you didn't have the subtitles on, you wouldn't actually notice it. But this was like zooming in on the cracks on the Star Whale spaceship on
Yes.
in various different elements in the show. So how did you feel having a much more overt series arc?
I don't like it. I don't like Moffat. I don't like what he's doing. I liked then I just feel like I'm contradicting myself because I was like, oh, I need pieces of the puzzle. But you don't really. Like with Bad Wolf and things, like even if you missed it, when the Doctor realised they had that montage kind of thing to be like, this is where they've seen it everywhere. And the fact that they went to the episode Wales where they're at Bad Wolf Bay and not Bad Wolf Bay, like the thing
She has the
Girls
Bad Wolf
was
project,
called
I think.
Bad Wolf, yeah. And that's when the Doctor goes, oh, Bad Wolf, and then that's when the audience guy starts to go, oh, this actually means something. But then it's like, oh no, it's fine. Like that's, I think, a fun way to do it. This is very in your face. As I said, having that very early on in episode like 4 and 5, being like, oh look, they're going into the crack and disappearing, and people are forgetting they exist. Like it was very in your face. Like I know you want your audience to be on the journey with you, and to understand, but you also need to, I think, allow your audience to feel, so not being told, are you silly? Can't you see it? Look at it. Look at it. Look.
But you did say you're contradicting yourself a bit there, because you did say for the finale that you didn't like that you had to figure it out, that you wanted it spelled out.
Well, because there was so much happening. It's a very fine balance. You can't assume your audience is stupid and be shoving things in their face, but you also can't assume that they are like paying attention to every single little detail, and that all these little details are now needy. Like, and I just felt like it was very much like throughout the whole episode. And as I said, they visited the crack very early on and made a big deal of it. And so we know that it was going to be like, that was a big issue. But then we had to sit with that information for a while. But then just a lot happened in those last 2 episodes. Like it wasn't like it was spread across the whole season. Like everything happened. Like too much happened in those two episodes.
And I'm trying to remember if the Prisoner Zero in the first episode, I can't remember if it makes a reference to Silence Will Fall. I think it might have. And
God.
At least was that was an interesting element in the sense that it's more like a multi-series arc where, but as you're saying, it was a less like blatant one where it was more just a phrase. It was just sounded ominous. We're just saying Silence Will Fall. Oh, something spooky is going to happen. And then it's only as the series goes on that we go, oh, okay, that's a bit more of a literal thing, or it's a recurring theme. So I actually thought that was a bit more of a clever one that went a bit more unnoticed.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, because you're hearing them say it rather than it literally being shoved in your face. I think what I'm like, my issue with episode 12 and 13 wasn't necessarily like in terms of having to figure everything out. I think it was just there was so much that you had to take in.
Yeah, it was very busy.
And like there was so much information that you then had to like hold on to, and then all of a sudden the crack felt like it didn't really matter at the end, and then it was all the Pandorica, and like it just nothing really. I don't know. Like I don't even remember what ended up happening with the crack.
Well, the crack was the TARDIS
the crack?
blowing up.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. So like,
wasn't it?
It's just too much. Too much.
And I guess as I was saying,
like the crack open and like swallow the world, and that be the issue rather than the TARDIS blowing up. Then someone have to be in the Pandorica, and there's Rory the Roman,
caused by the TARDIS blowing up,
who is standing near the thing, and then they're retelling Rory's story, and then baby Amy's there, and she's.
So I guess my issue was,
the Doctor,
as I was sort of saying
who
to you
doesn't
while we were
actually
talking,
exist, and is going back through Amy's memories to let. It's like, oh my god, sorry.
So I guess my issue was, as I was saying whilst we were watching it, was that one of my main issues with Moffat is his sort of montages at the starts of episodes. So we get it a number of times in a number of different Moffat episodes, where it feels like the episode just starts and we're kind of in the middle of stuff, which can be fun, but And I think it kind of works best in this one than it does in future attempts that he does, where we're sort of getting this painting from Van Gogh being brought through time of the TARDIS blowing up. But we get it again in A Good Man Goes to War. We get it again in... there's a few other examples of it as well. Dinosaurs on a Spaceship as well, I think is another one. There's a few where it just feels very like, oh, I'm going to throw all these sorts of cameos at us and be really flashy and neat. And as you say, I mean, to start an episode off with that really sets the tone, as it's going to be quite fast paced. And if you're going to have a quite complicated, fast moving plot, probably better to start a bit slower and ease people into it, because then it might actually let them sort of settle into the episode and understand what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like I have made it very clear that I'm a huge fan of Old Who, and looking at those episodes, whether they are the 4-parters or it's normally 6-parters, aren't they?
Well, 4 or 6, yeah.
4 or 6. You'd be like halfway through, or like ending of episode 3 is when action starts. Like it very much has that traditional story arc. Like if you were to use that traditional plot graph, that was very much Old Who. You'd have your exposition episode 1, your rising action episode 2, your conflict in episode 3, and then the resolution for episode conflict episode 3 and 4, and then your resolution for the other 2. And like it was very much that slow build and like that world building. So you get to know the characters and you get to know, what's happening in that context, and you're guessing what's going to go wrong. While Moffat uses the whole, I'm going to start in the action and then backfill through the characters, which can get a bit old, can get quite old quite quickly. Works with creative writing. I don't think it really works with TV episodes. So I agree with you there, that montagey start just means that you're already going 100 miles an hour from the beginning. And like, where do you go from there? Where do you go?
Yeah. So I was just going to say, so what was your overall thoughts of this season then? What would you rate it? Not necessarily a number, but just a general feeling.
Things. I don't like numbers.
I just said not a number.
Okay. I don't know. Now that we've talked about it, I don't know. I was pretty like, when I initially was like, oh, cool, we're doing this. Like, I actually enjoyed that season. I think it's very much a mixed bag. There are some great episodes. Vampire's Venice, Amy's Choice, Hungry Earth, Cold Blood, Vincent the Doctor. Like, there's a good, solid string of episodes. And then there's just other episodes where it's just questionable.
I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10, I think. I think there was more good episodes than bad. I think, especially having watched the following season already, and we'll do a review of that soon enough, I think the following season has many more... The following season, to me, is comparative to the Martha series, which you like. But for me, it's just a lot of very bland episodes where you watch it and I'm like, I don't feel any tension because I just don't feel engaged in the plot. In the following season. So in contrast, this season, I thought, as you're saying, I think every episode had its good moments. I think Victory and the Daleks is definitely the weakest, but I at least liked and was engaged in the story of all the other episodes. So yeah, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. Yeah.
Good rating. And overall, like, I enjoyed Matt Smith as the Doctor. Like, he was finding his feet, but he, eventually did get that stride. And Amy as well. I really liked Amy as a character, and same with Rory. I know you don't like how Rory's treated throughout these 2 series. Like,
I just think
this series and the next.
I think he's very much... I think if the genders were reversed, it would be a much more controversial take on a relationship, I think.
Yeah, he gets stepped on a lot.
I think they get away with a lot because he's a male character.
Yes.
Sort of similar to how Mickey was treated in Fairness. Mickey and Rory are very similar in that sense.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's true. He's a new Mickey. But yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you for joining me for this one, Lo.
That's all right. I feel like it's an interesting season. It's been nice watching back your season and the next with you, because there are a lot of episodes that I haven't seen. So these are
Yeah, it must be
genuine,
interesting watching them
like,
quite
first
fresh.
reactions.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, yeah. So thank you for joining me, and thank you everyone for
All right.
listening in. It's been a good fun rewatching or reviewing Series 5. We'll be back soon enough reviewing Series 6. But as always, let us know your thoughts. Comment on the video below. Give us a like. Share it around if you agree. If you disagree, let us know why. We always welcome comments and questions as well. But until the next review, see you guys.